This is ridiculous. We have to tell them about the red pill.
I know. All they've ever known is limited investment choices. The blue pill. A warped reality.
Well, it's what they think is normal and acceptable. They don't know about one contract property. They don't know there are alternate options.
We have to tell them. This has carried on long enough.
Do you have the red pill, the options available to them?
I do. It's now up to them. Do they want a better lifestyle in retirement, or are they going to continually be brainwashed by the industry super funds?
The decision is yours.
Reach out to One Contract Property for life-changing superannuation options and choices. Choices you never knew were possible until now.
Well, we're going to continue on the property theme, but a different sort of aspect to it this time around. And the first time I spoke to Raymond from One Contract Property, I learnt a lot about this conundrum that SMSFs had with buying certain types of residential property and the structure around it. So they've got a great proposition and a great education process really about how all that works. So I will introduce Raymond to the stage. He's the Managing Director of One Contract Property. I don't know whether or not you saw the marketing video earlier today, but I'm not sure whether or not I should refer to him as Raymond or Neo from The Matrix. But whichever it is, please welcome him to the stage.
Thanks, David. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. One Contract Property, we started about 2 years ago, and I better cover this off first. Anything I talk about today, it's not financial advice, it's not personal. Seek your accountant and financial advisor when you're looking at making investments as per general. All right, because I am talking about property and how you can do property inside your self-managed super fund, and some of the changes that we've brought to the market. Now, if you're in super fund, you already know some of these things. If you're looking at it, I'll cover these off briefly. We'll talk about investing in the 15% tax rate or down to 0% when you're investing in your income through capital gains as well. What was possible, the ATO rules and regulations that you're all aware of in property, or if you're not, I'll cover those off. A bit about us, how you can get access to hundreds of thousands of dollars of extra investment income with your superannuation fund, and also use that 10% extra that you're being paid or charged from your employers and the wages that are going into your super fund. Some structures and some calculations, and I'll also finish up with a fairly specific example of one of my staff and how he's using his superannuation to change his and his wife's retirement on the way through. So what was possible? I suppose when you're looking at investing, you always should be looking at short, medium and long-term investments. Short and medium being how you're going to be earning investment and how you're going to be getting residual income from your investments so you can live before you retire. Long-term, superannuation is a great option for that, and doing it structured, having the tax and asset benefits. Vehicles for holding tax and the tax treatments being personal, discretionary trust, unit trust and companies. All of us are aware of those, and along with that comes the different tax rates and the actual trust treatments in that. With superannuation, one of the big problems that people have had when they've taken their money out of an industry super fund and put it into their self-managed super fund and they want to be buying property, you've been limited in what you can actually purchase. You can buy units, townhouses and apartments, because a lot of those are done under a single contract. So you're buying the asset and it's a completed product or it's an off-the-plan product. Where you're looking at buying an asset that's going to be built or it is yet to be built, unless you can find a builder that's going to fund it for you, all of those properties are off the market. So any townhouses, well, most of those are under single contract anyway, but where you're getting into duplexes or triplexes or NDIS properties or co-living properties, if you're looking at doing some subdivisions, anything that's going to give you some great capital gains and some long-term cash benefits and capital growth in that side of it, all of those are off the market or have been off the market to you up until now, because unless you're going to be paying cash. Now, if you've got $1 million cash in your super fund, this is a personal opinion, why are you going to buy just one asset? Why don't you buy three? As soon as you step into that realm of buying three and using debt, now it becomes an illegal transaction unless you can find someone that's going to fund it for you. And that's the hard part, because as soon as you find someone that's going to fund it for you, now you're limiting where that person's going to fund, and the builder, they'll build in one area, but you might want it in South Coomera and they're building in North Queensland. Right? So the choices that you've got are totally different. Single acquirable asset, you can buy any sort of property out there that's completed at the moment, because it's a completed asset. As soon as you start getting into two-part contracts where you're buying the block of land and then entering into a second contract where you're doing a build, unless you're paying cash, that's an illegal transaction in your super fund. I actually sat down with a financial planner yesterday, and he said one of his clients, before he met him, did that. It was a 45% penalty from the ATO on the assets of the super fund because of that transaction. So, huge cost if you do it wrong. Builders responsible. Up until now, if you're looking to build, you've got to find a builder that's going to fund your whole project. If it's an $800,000 property, land and house, there are some builders out there that will build in their areas, in their products they want to build, and they'll fund you, they'll take a 10% deposit, that'll sit in the trust account, and they fund the other $800,000 until completion. The likelihood of doing that right across Australia up until now has been very limited. What we do, we actually allow you to have choice right across the market. So we're not tied in with any individual builder, but it comes back to yourselves, why you're looking at doing it, where you're looking to build. When do you want it, and who do you want to build with? So the background, what we give you is choice. Who we are. We're a great bunch of guys. There's about 10 of us work at One Contract Property. 2 years ago, we were selling land and house packages through accountants and financial planners for investors. We had 2 clients, both Indian friends, that bought an NDIS property, or each bought an NDIS property off of us. Just before land settlement, they came to us and said, Raymond, we want to put this into our self-managed super fund. Great idea, because they're a high cash flow property and make them those 2 properties, $150,000 each cash income each year. That highlighted to me 2 years ago the ability, or the lack of ability, that people had of choice being able to invest in their super fund. Now, those 2 deals, they fell apart. I couldn't do them because they were 2-part contracts. The people didn't have their self-managed super fund set up at that stage. And at that stage, I hadn't come up with this whole concept anyway. So what it did, it made me actually look at the industry and how I invest in myself outside of super. I've got my own attitude of what's good and what's bad in property and the areas, etc. Once I find the area, then I'll look into that area and I'll find the builder that's going to build what I want to be actually having built in for my investment. And then I'll go to the funder and actually arrange the funding accordingly. That choice, up until now, you haven't had in your super fund, because what's been around is, actually I'll go back one. Even when you're entering a single part contract prior to One Contract Property, you've been doing a 90-10 arrangement where you pay a 10% deposit, the builder would fund it, and at completion you'd then release that 10% and you'd pay the other 90%. But the builder still has to fund it. With our product, you pay a 35% deposit, We fund the 65%. But it comes back to, where do you want to build? What do you want to build in your super fund? How do you want to manage your money? We give you that choice now. What makes us unique? Just that whole choice. Because I'm not telling you where you have to buy the block of land. I'm not telling you who you have to build with. I'm not telling you who you have to fund with. All I'm saying is you've got to have a block of dirt, and you've got to then choose a builder anywhere in Australia. And that gives you total choice on your investment. Industry super funds. Now, most of you, if you're in self-managed super funds, you already realise this. Big part of industry super funds, for me, is the fees and charges that they charge and the returns that I get and the lack of control I have. Compare that to self-managed super funds. You can still invest in the same things up until one contract property. You're limited on the property side, but you're reducing the fixed fees. And as long as you're doing it correctly, you're actually maximising the income that's coming back to yourself. But our focus is around property. How we work, as I said, you choose the block of land, you choose the builder, you choose the funding model that you want at the back end of how you're going to fund it at the end. We put it all together as a single part contract. Once it's finished, you then come up with the 65% balance to pay that out. And now you've got a brand new property inside your super fund that you've chosen, not someone has actually forced upon you. Now I'll run through some quick numbers here. In this example, you've got a $600,000 land and house package. Now, a lot of salespeople, when they're actually selling that to you, will tell you it's a $600,000 house and land package, and they forget to tell you about the other $30,000 worth of costs that you've got, being stamp duty, interest, all the holding costs that you've got in the development cycle. So when you're buying a $600,000 package, it's actually a $634 package, right? This is outside of super, every day of the week, right? So if you go to a home display village, they'll sell you a $600,000 package. They just don't tell you about the other $30,000 worth of costs. Well, that's what we call an effective two-part construction cost. How we turn that into a single-part contract, we charge a $11,000 fee, 10 plus GST. That covers our profit. That's how we make our money. We've got another $33,000 worth of costs in there because we actually buy the block of land. So to get around the SIS Act and make it on a legal transaction, you choose it all, we buy the block of land, we engage the builder, we pay them all their build progress payments. So on the builder side, they love it because it stays a two-part contract. For them, it's just business as usual. Whether it's a super fund or whether it's a company, family trust or whatever, they're just building houses, they're not funding it. Out of that $630,000 property turns into a single contract price of $678,000, single contract. You pay a 35% deposit, we're off and running, we're building the house. In 9, 12, 15 months, when it's completed, you pay the 65% balance and you own a property that you want inside your super fund now, all right? So I'll run through this because I'm a bit short on time on this one. One of the big things in superannuation, you'd be fully aware, if you've got capital growth in your super fund, you can't leverage against it, right? If you've paid down a loan and you've got another $200,000 worth of capital growth, you can't access it. With this product, because you're building a brand new property in your super fund, by the time you pay or enter the contract with us to build the property, in that next 12 or 18 months as it gets built, there's capital growth that happens to the land and the property. Now, when you go to your funders at the back end, you're actually funding a completed property. They're doing a loan to value ratio on their appraisal of that property at that point in time, not on contract time. So what you're looking at here, just for an example, you pick up $100,000 worth of equity in the build period and you go to the bank and get an 80% LVR loan, you'll now got the ability to pull out $80,000 or 80% of the capital growth that's happened in that build construction period. A one-time only event. So if you're putting, say, what, $25,000 maximum contribution into your fund every year, that $80,000 will now put you 3 years in advance of getting into your next property. Small benefit. Depreciation, old versus new. What we give you the ability to do is, up until now, you've only had the ability, if you want to get into housing, is to buy established houses in most cases. You compare that to new houses, just on depreciation. You've got a 10-year-old property, you get basically a $3,500 tax depreciation. Compare that to a new property, you're getting $12,000. There's an old saying, it's not what you earn, it's what you keep. If you can maximize the next 10 years worth of depreciation and pick up $120,000 worth of deductions over the next 10 years for depreciation, you're so much further ahead than what you would be if you're buying an older property. Some of the other things, warranty, repairs and maintenance, additional rent. If you're renting the property out, what's the likelihood of getting the same rent? If you same suburb, you've got a brand new property or an existing property, and it's the rental market, capital appreciation, the ability to choose high cash flow properties. It comes back to what do you want, what are your long-term goals, what are you working with your financial planners. You've now got choice to be able to put the right type of property in your super fund. All right, it's not what I tell you is right, what comes back to what you want. Even not what the builders, etc. Access to equity that I run through with that extra $80,000, etc. That's something that's a one-time event. You can't do that when you buy an established property, right? If you're on an 80% LVR loan and you pay it down, that equity stays in there. I was talking to a couple yesterday up in Queensland. They got a $560,000 property in their super fund. They owe $120,000 and they wanted to use the equity. The only way they can do it is sell the property, pay the 15% tax, take the capital gain, and then reinvest again. Now, with their financial plan that we sat down with, they'll do that because it was an older property. But that's the only way you can access that equity. Why are you investing? Very similar. Lifestyle, security, retirement. But it comes back, what do your retirement want to, what's it going to cost you to retire? Is it going to be 100,000, 200,000, 50,000? Is it going to be shares? Is it going to be property? I'm pro-property, all right? Having one property, two properties, three properties in the right choices, now you've got the choice, all right? Now, this is an example of my national development manager, Michael. He actually purchased the property just before we came up with this solution. He purchased a display home in Queensland. Nice property, made him some good money, especially over the last couple of years. He's picked up an amazing capital growth out of it. He did kick me about 2 months after when I came up with the concept, and he could have actually built something, but hey, he's in a good position. In this example here, he's selling this property and converting the capital gain that he's got out of that and the cash and buying into another property. Him and his wife, they contribute $25,000 each. He'll pick up $500,000 of capital gain out of this property. What he's doing out of that, he's actually then buying an NDIS property this year. That property will be valued by the time he's retired at about $1.2 million and have a rental income through the NDIS conservatively of about $123,000. Next year, because of the money that he's got in his super fund and also the cash that's coming in, he'll be buying a second property. Now, these are properties that he's chosen that are looking to be built. He'll actually build them because he's building high cash flow quality properties that are tied to the NDIS. Now, that's a great investment scheme for him. He's also looking at co-living at the moment as well, and probably changing this second one into a co-living. But again, it's a choice that he's got. He's not being forced down that way because that's the only thing that's available. And this is what the choice that you've got now as well. The third one, by 52, he gets a third property. Again, an NDIS property, $1.3 million in retirement, $140,000 rent a year. Now, NDIS comes with its own challenges. It's got to be done properly. It's got to be under a participant-led model. Have a talk to us outside if you're looking at that stage. But these are just great properties, right? Great investment for the community as well, what it's doing to the disabled community. They need that property. But also from an investment point of view for yourselves, you're getting some amazing returns, if that's what you want. What can you actually choose? Any type of house, anywhere in Australia. This is just one example that we picked out 3 or 4 of them to actually show you, to open your mind that this is now possible right across Australia. If you're looking at property, all of Australia, all of development is open to you and your superannuation fund right now, right? And so don't listen to anybody who said it's illegal. If you're not using one contract property and you're looking to use debt, unless you can find a builder, it is illegal. And you don't want to be paying 45% penalty on it. Duplexes, another great investment, great returns. You've got 2 rentals out of 1 property. You do it properly. The duplexes, when you buy them, you actually buy it as a 1 property, but we actually give you 2 titles, 1 for each side. So you end up owning literally 2 houses in 1 property, right? So you get some good capital growth on those. NDIS, very good property done properly. There's a whole lot of stuff out in the market where people are promoting NDIS. You're making $180,000, $200,000 a year rent out of it. Be very careful, because it's not in NDIS, it's not the property that's the investment. Now that might sound a bit nasty, but it's actually the disabled participants that are going into the property, because that's where the money comes from. The government attaches the rental income to the individuals, not to the property. So if you haven't got any participants and you spent $1.1 million on a property, you've just got a big white elephant. And NDIS is specific about the type of property you're building, the location that you're going to be putting it in, and also all the other ancillary services that are attached to that you're not funding, the government's funding, that need to be there to actually look after disabled people. So if you're looking at NDIS, find a participant-led model that's actually going to give you the income, or guarantee, as close as you can, guarantee the income for it. Co-living, in my opinion, co-living runs very closely to NDIS as an investment product for the return that you're getting out of it. Now, this is a property where you can have up to 5 bedrooms, like this one's got 3. But you can have 5 totally separate, independent units inside the house. And when you're looking at the house, it looks like a normal residential house from the outside. But you're picking up $250 to $300 a week in rent per room. Really good investment. But you're getting $1,800 to $2,500 a week in rent for something that's going to cost you between $8 to $1.1 million completed. Ooh, sorry, went the wrong way. Dual key, similar to duplexes, but you haven't got the ability to actually split the titles, but you do have 2 rents coming out of it. Who we are, follow us on social media. Hopefully that's giving you some understanding and some education of what you can actually do now in your super fund and with the money that you're looking to invest and actually earn for your long-term retirement. If you've got any questions, come out and see myself and the team at the booth or at the table outside, and thank you very much for your time. All right, the question is the 35% deposit. Now, with any investment, you need to be getting your investment or your finance looked after and make sure that you can actually afford the borrowing that you're looking to take out. We use Columbus Capital and Homestar Finance to look after our short-term funding. The 65% is based on my P&L and my balance sheet and my guarantees, right? When we're actually doing the build. So you pay a 35% deposit. I've got the millions of dollars in wholesale funding already arranged that we use to actually build that property for you. At the completion, you need to then have a takeout for the 65%. If you've got a mortgage broker, use them. If you haven't, our funders are happy to talk to you directly I don't get any commissions on that. They're one of the leading funders in the industry for self-managed super. At the moment, I think their rates are around 5% for self-managed super fund lending. But you can talk to them directly at the start of the build, and they can give you a pre-approval for the back end as well, or you can go to your own funder. So again, it's all about choice, and I'm not telling you have to use anybody. Has it released income during retirement, particularly if there's debt outstanding? It comes back to I think it comes back to the investment that you're looking to go into. Like for myself, and I believe any financial advisor out there is not going to be advising you to get into an asset that's actually costing you money week on week. It should be a cash positive investment from start to finish. All right, so how that works and how that structures, I think you need to talk to your financial advisor about that. But any property that you're getting, in my opinion, you should be getting into cash positive property. So when it gets to retirement, you've either got enough to pay down the debt and pay it out and then start living on that income, or have the ability to continue pulling out what you need to live on and pay that debt down. But that's more getting into a financial planning question on that side. I'll divert that to your financial planner. All right. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Raymond, and great solution unlocking such a wide choice of residential properties for SMSF investors should they choose to go down that path.